Francesca. You're a deep tech investor, also angel investor, and you have a big panel to lead. I leave it to you to introduce.
Thanks, everybody. It's a pleasure being here, and also it has been a pleasure being part of the ESIL project. We have done an incredible a job on the fields together with the Archangel I've been working with, and so I mean an amazing journey, and I do hope that a follow-up will happen. So I have a quite large panel to moderate today, and it's gonna be why early stage connection and early stage partnership are so important among different type of innovation actor, and why it's relevant and crucial for taking successful product into the market. I believe that the microphone it's not so relevant for me, but by the way, I will use it. So my tone of voice it's naturally very high. So I mean, why it's crucial putting together in the proper way at the proper moment different type of expertise and competencies in order to take more, let's say, promising research results into the market. So I would like to invite my panelists. I hope they are all here. So I would like to come on stage Timo Allante, the head of unit of the Pathfinder. Then I would like to invite Ivano Ciceri, Politecnico di Milano. Ivano, good morning. And also I would like to invite Marco Franchin, exploitation manager of the FIRE project, and Stefano Giancola, Orchestra Scientific. Stefano, yes, you are here, and I'm not sure that when is he? Oh yeah, just arrived because I had Charles when well arrived, and I would like, I mean, to manage my my panel with a very short presentation. I don't know if you may help in launching Jan. I have a couple of slides. I would like to use the microphone. I would like to use to launch. Okay, here we are. And maybe, yes, I would like to provide you with some data. It seems that in Europe we are great in filing patent and in making incredible publication, but then the conversion rate from patent and publication is very low. It means that we are lagging behind in converting these incredible knowledge results into marketable product. So it seems that researchers need more support, more non-conventional support, because the support they are receiving, it is not enough in translating these amazing results into successful product. So they may need, and it's going to be something that we will discuss during the panel, they may need a different type of support, a support that should be delivered to them in a more organized and structured way from the very beginning, and for the researchers that are here in the room, starting from lower TRL. So there are funding schemes, very, let's say, effective, very successful, providing funding and also certain type of support to a research project from very low TRL up to higher TRL. But I mean, the conversion rate, as we were seeing before, it is quite low. So I would like today to discuss with you about the possibility to have to define a more, let's say, organized and structured role for investors. We have lots of investors here that could be, I mean, very relevant for a very early stage project, and investors may play the role of research angel, meaning working together and being together with the research team since the very lower TRL. And then they may, let's say, play their role they are very familiar with, maybe becoming also business angels. So not only investing time and resources and skills and expertise, but also, I mean, investing their own money into most promising project. So that's, I mean, my starting speech. And then I would like to give the floor to my panelists. And I would like to start with you, Timo, because you are the head of unit at the Pathfinder, so meaning, I mean, project with a very low TRL. And you, as a head of unit, you are deeply involved in supporting breakthrough innovation. And I would like to know, according to your experience, to the role you play, what are the key obstacles faced by researchers, team at the very early stage of their commercialization?
Yes, it's a question that I could maybe spend the whole session to discuss, but let's try to be brief. So, just if you don't know, in Pathfinder we are at the moment having about 500 running projects, a project portfolio about 1.8 billion EU funding going into these projects. So we have a vast number of such deep tech projects ongoing, and indeed each one of them should have the end goal and the idea going to the market with the technology one day. And the first challenge, of course, there is that we are talking about highly complicated research projects in its own right already. So we are talking about researchers who are embedded in what they love, doing the technology and tweaking it, which is already a big challenge. And now comes your question, how can we make such people who have made their life ambition to make this new technology and are passionate about it exposed to another challenging and difficult world, which is not their own, which is how to make business out of it, how to turn that into successes. And there comes the first challenge we have, how to make them understand that there is a requirement and it's a complicated and it's not easy to get funding, because in their first mind they said the challenge is in the technology, and once I get it right, once I have my specs right, the money will start flowing in. And we know that it's not as simple as that. And to make them understand quite early that they need to start thinking about this quite early, because it's not just about taking the technology right, it's about making it the case, making the pitch right, having that you have your IP rights secured, that you have the right teams, and all the regulatory aspects and the standardization and knowing your competitiveness and on competitors, knowing how you are going to turn around the market. So how to make them understand that there is a whole wind of questions which comes on top of the technology, which is their comfort zone. How to expose to them to that. And maybe I'll stop there, but that's the biggest challenge we have, I think.
Maybe a very quick follow-up question. I mean, how this, let's say, issue can be mitigated and how the Pathfinder is trying, I mean, to face these challenges.
Yes, indeed. So we are working with people like you. So thanks for having here. It's a good opportunity to just discuss about these challenges. But indeed, we have the business advisory services. So we are not only giving, that's one big change that we have done with the European Innovation Council, that we have, let's say, enlarged our portfolio of services from not only providing the grant money, but also giving advice, training, exposing these researchers to these questions that I mentioned, and to make them understand. And because at the end of the day, they need to make their life choice too. They want to stay as researchers and ensure that they are surrounded by, like in your slide you showed, number 2, business partners around them who are taking them from the very beginning and showing that you have to think about these other questions. They can focus on their technology, but it's good if they're around it. Or if they want. We have successful cases where scientists have turned into very successful business people, if that's what they want to do as their path. But they need to make a choice at some point, you know.
But I mean, and then I will come back later on. I mean, the point it is, I mean, not only to have external business services available, because there are a lot that are very well organized. I mean, the point it is, maybe it's important to have inside the team, since the very beginning, a more business-minded person, I mean, guiding the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree to that, yes.
Okay, great. So Ivano, you are director at Politecnico of Milan of the Technology Transfer Office. I mean, a very, let's say, successful case of open-minded management of patent and creation of startup and spin-off. I would like to understand from a university tech transfer perspective, what are the barriers, the biggest barriers to translate research results into the market-ready solution? So, what do you think? What do you have experienced?
Yeah, thank you, Francesca. About our experience, I can share with you is I would like to share with you some numbers. For example, we do file each year more or less 100 patents. Half of them, 50 patents per year, are patents that are coming from commissioned research. That means research that is being commissioned from corporates. And for these patents, these are patents that are jointly filed, 50% typically from of the university and 50% of the corporate. So in this case, after the patent, having the patent, we do assign our share to corporates. So half of the patents that we have got each year are, I would say, naturally exploited to corporates. But the other half, 50% of our patents are coming from what we call autonomous research. And so here, the situation is very different because we don't have the partner already inside the project from the beginning. So what we do with this, and we are arriving to the barriers. What we do with that, with these patents, we try, of course, to find corporates. So if we are able, if the technology is ready, and usually it's not ready, but if it's ready, we try to find the corporates. And the third thing that we can do is trying to have a startup or a spin-off that brings to market the technology. And the barriers, we've got many barriers here. We've got culture and language differences between researchers and investors. We have been mentioning yesterday that we have been different expectation about risk, about timing, about market potential. So researchers and investors have got different views on this topic. And another barrier is the limited availability of researchers to commit full-time to entrepreneurial project. I mean, in my experience, I think I didn't meet any full-time professor that resigned from the university to become entrepreneur. I met some postdoc, some PhD, but never a full-time professor that decided to resign and to become entrepreneur. So this is a topic. Some of the solutions that we are implementing are, one is trying to build reference startup models. I mean, we try to guide researchers by presenting startup models proven higher success rate. Because if you present models, this is very helpful for researchers. Another thing that we are trying to do is startups with corporate participants. That is important. I remember that yesterday Malin did not agree with that because we were saying that VCC were not working, but it depends. It depends. In some time it works. Third thing is teams that combine researchers and students. When I mean researchers, I mean senior researchers and students. This is very, very important, but is not easy to create the venture between researchers and the students. Yeah.
I'm aware about experience related to contamination exercise, meaning putting together a researcher with a deep tech, let's say, a solution with a student or with other researcher coming from, let's say, a financial or economics faculty. Do you think that it is something that may help to introduce within very technical and technological, let's say, a researchers team? It may help in order to create a successful, let's say, company.
For sure, that's very, very important. You need all the skills that you do not have. But saying to a senior researcher that he or she do not have some skill is not so easy. First, you need to convince them.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Recognize the lack of competencies.
Because I'm joking, but it depends on the kind of experience. Because if you're talking with someone that just was very good in high school, then went to the university and was probably top student at the university, then stayed there for the PhD, then stayed there for the postdoc, then got some patent. Yeah. So trying to work with them to explain that to go to the market, to have a startup, you need different skills, you need different experience. That means that someone outside the university is in somewhere better than you. You see, is a point.
Might know something, yes.
Yeah, okay. And that's why, just to finish, I think that the relationship with the researcher is very important. So we, as a technology transfer office, what we try to do is creating a continuous relationships with the researchers and to guide, to advise them toward this kind of market experience and so on.
Marco, being the exploitation manager of a transition project, I know quite well because I'm working with Marco, and Marco, I believe, can provide us a very, let's say, relevant information from the field, working with a great research team coming from Ospedale San Raffaele, which is a leading hospital in Italy, promoting the project together with the University of Bologna. So, Marco, in your experience with the project, with the FIRE project, what role do early collaboration play in the success or in the failure of an innovation? Are there any specific moment you would like, to mention, or milestone where the collaboration among different part of the project becomes more important, more relevant for the success of the project, which is a project reaching the last phase? So.
Yeah, thank you, Francesca. Good morning, everybody. Well, for clarity's sake, as Francesca said, FIRE is an EIC transition project, and that is developing a solution for the early diagnosis of bladder cancer. Our role as my role as business facilitator, and as Francesca said in her presentation, as also research angels, let's introduce this new concept, is of course key in such a project. I view the exploitation process in a deep tech project like FIRE as a continuous process of convincing researchers of the importance of developing a strategy that ensure that results are utilized and can generate impact. Our role is to ask the right questions at the right times and support researchers to provide the most appropriate answers to these questions to shorten the time to market as much as possible. Getting back to, so with regard to the second part of your question, so the key milestones and moments where this relationship, this collaboration is particularly important. Well, I would say that probably a key moment in this relationship is when the business model has been defined and agreed with the partner. From this moment on, the partners can, with our support, can start working on the analysis of the target market, the identification of the early adopters, and also the definition of the dissemination activities in order to properly promote the solution, the technology to the early adopters. In this regard, the business model in FIRE is licensing to a spin-off to undertake clinical validation and product certification of the solution. I would say that in this scenario, I mean, the scenario when a technology is transferred to a spin-off, there are no specific tools to help business facilitators and research angels claim a role within a spin-off when the IP in question is solely owned by the partners involved in the research activities. And therefore, consequently, research angels and business facilitators risk being excluded from the value creation process. For this reason, I think it's important to begin to think about ad hoc instruments to facilitate and encourage the involvement of business facilitators and research angels in this process. Ad hoc instruments such as new clauses in the consortium agreement and for example, a mechanism for proposals, evaluations that rewards those projects that involve business facilitators and research angels with a solid and clear track record in entrepreneurship, fundraising, and even early stage investment.
Thank you very much, Marco. I think that you are touching a very relevant point because, as you know, I'm also involved into the FIRE project, and I believe that we start since the very beginning in discussing all the points you have touched with the researchers in order to make them aware about the journey they have to go through before taking the results into the market. And I think that what it was also important with specific reference to FIRE, it has been the fact that we have been working closely with the team, providing real example from the field on how it may work. And so they are going through a relevant learning process. They are acquiring more awareness and more awareness about what is going to be next and how it's important to organize the journey towards the market, and the fact that they do not have all the necessary competencies and skills to go successfully through the journey. I would like to go to Stefano Giancola, which is the Chief Technology Officer from Orchestra, which is a very innovative company exploiting patents coming from deep tech sector. And Stefano, yes, I would like to focus on who does what early, on the meaning how angels, investors, and innovation can concretely support research teams. And so you, according to the role you play in your company, how you bridge the gap between research and commercial application? How can investors, especially early stage investors as business angels, can become more effectively involved into the development of early stage product, and to ensure that the product will reach at the due time the market? So,
first of all, thank you very much, Francesca, and thank you for the for the invitation. It's a real pleasure for me to be here today, also in this heterogeneous connected panel. So, just a brief introduction of Orchestra, the company I'm working on. So basically, we are a startup developing a unique technology that is able to capture CO2 and convert it into highly pure CO2, so of high market value, and this at more than 50% lower than competitors. Technology is sustainable, modular, so a real breakthrough in the field. Now, jumping to your question, I will be the voice of a startup. So the most important support that investors and as well the European Union can do to a startup is, of course, funding. So we have to be real, we have to be honest on this. Is it true that a big effort is now coming on in Europe? Also investing in project with market potential. That's what the European Innovation Council is doing. We know because we have a pathfinder, so I'm happy to have here Timo. Now, it's true that in Europe we need to put more money, and even in the early stage of technology development, because we have to compete with USA and China. So I know many companies that found investment, European company outside Europe. And why? So to avoid technology desertification, because now we have to go out from the comfort zone. That is clear. Now, it's not just capital, it's engaged capital. So basically, investor can really shape and can help basically technology to go to the market. How? Defining real world technical challenges, yes, this is true, but this investor can do quite well. So because I am in that side, so I can tell you that investor can do very well. What is more difficult is to understand market needs. So this is really important for us. And without market needs, technology will. I am as well. I did some patent, and with the transfer office, we decided that was not, let's say, interesting to go further. So that's why I said I like to be in this panel, because and another important help is, of course, the networking, because to have the right networking helps a company to go faster, and time is a key point. So if we have this from the beginning, that will help a lot. So I think, and I agree with all the comments that I heard before. So that's.
Oh, also on my behalf, thanks for the invitation. Glad to be on the panel. Maybe to start reflecting a bit on what has already been said, and maybe Ivano, starting with you. It's easier to give a scientist an argument that comes from science, convincing them that they might need external help. Actually, I did a PhD on the success factors of academic spin-off companies originating from European universities. And one of the outcomes was actually, please involve the researchers when transferring the technology to a spin-off and commercializing it, but please do not do it as a CEO. Of course, there are exceptions. I'm fully aware of that. There are great scientists turning into great entrepreneurs. And the link between, I would say, the scientific team that made the discovery or the invention and the team that commercialized it should be there. But on average, the scientist is not necessarily the best CEO. So science might convince scientists here. And that's exactly also what we're looking for. So as an accelerator, we are part of IMEC, which is actually one of the leading research institutes globally when it comes to semicon innovation. So we are part of a research institute ourselves. So that also means we help quite a lot of our own spin-offs in getting to the market. But we also help a lot of external founders and founding teams to bring their technology to the market. So we're not only helping spin-offs. Now, what you see there, what the most important thing, and I think the investors in the room will know that what's most important is usually not the technology, it's not the market, it's not the money, it's team, 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 and team, and then all the rest. So what we're looking for in terms of projects that we help when selecting those, primarily we're looking at the capabilities of the team. And of course, when you look at scientists that might become an entrepreneur or might become involved in a spin-off creation, there is different kinds of scientists, and there is nothing wrong between the different buckets I'm about to mention. One is not necessarily better than the other, but you have scientists that are great at remaining scientists and not become an entrepreneur. There is nothing wrong with that, but they need to be aware of their lack of capabilities, then that maybe they need external help by serial entrepreneurs to turn their technology into commercialization. There is, on the other hand, scientists that might become great entrepreneurs, but that need little education or help in that process. And there are already very entrepreneurial scientists that maybe where you see from the get-go, hey, they might really turn into great entrepreneurs by default. So I would say there is no silver bullet. Otherwise, I think we all would already have been doing it. The answer is always, it depends, but we look carefully into what is the scenario and how should we build the team, the founding team that will really make the difference in bringing technology to the market. I think that's core.
Maybe a very quick follow-up question. And when you realize that there is the need to take someone from outside inside the team, how do you manage such type of, let's say, transition, or let's say such type of modification, whatever you want to call it? Yeah.
Well, it's stakeholder management. I think it's, of course, talking primarily to the scientists that develop the technology and how or to what extent they are willing to jump and take the risk to become an entrepreneur, because, of course, it's not without risk. But also talking to I would say, the leaders of the research program from which the technology emerges. I mean, we've had cases where actually 3 scientists really wanted to become an entrepreneur, create their own spin-off company. But the consequence of that was that the whole stream of research from a research group was killed, basically, because all the expertise was gone all of a sudden by the scientists turning into entrepreneurs. So it's also the research groups that need to be involved and evaluate what the consequences are. There is obviously the tech transfer offices that need to be involved in, say, the boundary conditions on how to transfer the IP into the spin-off company. So it's really stakeholder management and talking to all the actors involved to see what the best scenario is for everyone.
Experience, it is a lot about alignment of building successful partnerships. It is about a clear alignment of interest among the different stakeholders. And then, Timo, I would like to ask you fact that the mission has a significant role in facilitating the collaboration between these different players, and how the European Commission, and more precisely the Pathfinder, is capable to support such type of alignment between researchers and entrepreneurs, and maybe also investors, ensure that all the parties involved are aligned.
Yes, as I briefly mentioned in my earlier intervention, we have the business advisory services, which are kind of working around on this main topic, how to educate better our researchers to understand what is required and maybe to make them see. I mean, I like what Sven was saying there about these different types, in which category they might belong. And I think it's important that they make this discovery themselves, because like it was said earlier, it's not so easy to realize that this is what I want to do, and that there is nobody forcing you to become a different kind of a person, and you're allowed to continue developing your technology, because that's also important not to forget. That not only it needs to stay in the research lab, but also the company, if you're talking about deep tech companies, they need to continue developing constantly on their technology. It's rare the case that you just make it and then you start selling the boxes. I mean, the boxes need to have iterations, and there needs to be a continued effort in that as well. But anyway, I know I'm sidelining on your question. The other element that I want to bring actually in this is it's all about timing as well. There needs to be the right timing in doing these interventions, because, you know, if you are entering into these discussions too early, the technology is not ready, and you start wasting your time in looking into it and trying to make the pitch around, and it stays vague, and somebody who does an analysis realizes that it doesn't really exactly work. So you might kill your wings too early if you go too early into the discussion. On the other hand, if you're too late, there might be competitors coming around. Rarely there are situations where you are, you know, in a totally green field and nobody else would not be doing anything at all what you are doing. Maybe you're doing better, maybe you have a more fundamental chance there, but you really need to be careful about the timing. And this is one of the challenges which I have let's say, not really figured out how to make that analysis. It's technology validations and things like that, which will, when, yes, it depends, like many things, and you know, sometimes it's really a strategic business decision as well, because you have a competitor there, and it depends on whether you want to be among the early pioneers and the ones who is introducing the technology. If you look at some of the unicorns, the story is that they are rarely the first ones. There's somebody else who kind of laid the turn and tried to kind of convince the customers. Then it's the second wave companies that are coming. So it might be better to be strategic about it and see what somebody else is first trying out and doing. And then, of course, the time cycles are different. I mean, we fund all technology areas, so it's totally different cycles from life sciences, where you have clinical trials maybe to go through, versus in some of our software products, which can be much, much faster. So that's another challenge that we have. You have to work with different technology areas when in our business as well.
Yeah,
so I mean, take that into account as well.
I mean, there is not one a simple one
no,
question.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So to be checked case by case.
Case by case, depending on the people you have around the table and what they want to choose to do in their lives. So you have to kind of take that into account.
So the use model that Marco.
Yes, exactly. It comes down to down to your second lie, where you had this. You have to have the business partner there, listening and doing the hand-in-hand discovery process together.
Good. Thank you very much. And then Ivano, I would like to ask you, how do you manage the different expectations of researchers and the other partners that you may have into the team, and who may be more focused on scientific discovery, and investors who are looking for returns and market potential? I mean, what strategy can help to bridge the gap? So the question is, again, how do you manage the different expectations between researchers, business partners that are looking for profit in the shortest period of time? And so how do you do? Your recipe.
Yeah, talking about the distance between researcher and investors. One of the main distance that I find is the misunderstanding of the nature of funding, for example. I think that researchers, if researchers are not properly guided, they often perceive startup funding as it were a typical research grant. So the reasoning is like, I'm a researcher. If someone gives me money, probably it's because they want me to do what I'm good. That means research. Because I sometimes I do not realize that this is an EIC funding and is not an ERC funding or is Marie Curie funding, okay? Because I'm a researcher. And that seems to be a trivial point, but it's not like that. You need to advise researchers, because of course they do understand the difference. They're not stupid researchers. But the point is that your experience brings you to that kind of conclusion. Another expectation that is different is the equity division and the cap table. Of course, this is a very important point, the cap table. The reasoning is, if we have reached this point, it is thanks to my work. Without me, none of this would exist. And it is correct. It's correct. Of course, the reasoning of the investor is completely different. The diverging views on IP valuation is another point. And which kind of value you give to the IP as a researcher, and the kind of evaluation that is given by the investor. But you are asking for solution, I know. Yeah. I know. Okay, so I think that the right answer for solution is always it depends. It depends. But I want to go back to something that I said previously, that the importance of having startup models. I think that having models and advise researchers, explaining them and sharing with them the different kind of startup models that we have seen in our experience, this is very important and maybe is the main solution. The main solution is advisor and models.
Yes, it's very important always, but I mean, just for going very directly to the role played by Politecnico of Milano, do you are capable to offer all these different type of supporting services addressing all these specific questions and needs that may come from researcher in the process to setting up the spin-off? Do you have internally all the competencies and skills?
I would like to answer yes, but unfortunately the answer is no.
And you are, let's say, one of the most, let's say, successful examples.
No, the numbers of competencies, of skills that you need are so many that I think is almost impossible to have all the skills you need. The point is not having the skills. The point, I think, is having the network that has got the skills. And so if you want, okay, for example, using the alumni community to reach and to get the skills that you need is very important, and it's something that we are trying to do.
How do you that it is a clear map, a clear roadmap within the project for turning research into a commercial product? There is any, let's say, any very practical suggestion that you would like to share with us in order to ensure that there is a roadmap for exploiting what we are doing to get, I mean, what the researchers are doing within the project?
Thank you, Francesca. Well, an effective way to ensure that technology is brought to market is for sure to identify the key milestones and steps of the exploitation process. The thing is that in order to do that, it is essential to have a consolidated methodology, a proven approach, and effective tools. And actually, this is what Meta has been doing for years. We start identifying the key exploitable results and then defining the key elements for their characterization, such as unique value proposition, the business model, the early adopters. And then we move on to identifying the activities to be implemented after the project ends to ensure the solutions uptake, including timelines, the organizations and people in charge of the implementation of these activities, and more importantly, the costs associated to the implementation of these activities. And we all know that many exploitation plans, a lot of which envisage the creation of the spin-off, fail due to a lack of resources. And a roadmap that defines activities and estimates the cost associated to their implementation is key for the success of any exploitation plan.
A good example coming from our experience about a successful partnership between an innovation actor and a group of researchers, something that, according to your experience, has worked as a positive success.
Sure. So I would like first to let's talk about the really early stage of an invention. So I am a researcher. So I am asking for a pathfinder. So what's the question? For example, I would like to have investor or innovation actors that are really involved in defining the pathway. So an example to help to answer to strategic questions, this would really help. An example, should we ask money to build a production line of your materials, or should we ask money to do, let's say, to organize the market, let's say, to shape the market segment of the company in another direction? So this kind of question is really important. Second, define milestone together. I agree with Marco, because what it's really, let's say, a bad practice is to have the investor that put money and then they are not involved in defining the pathway of the company. And then third, let's say, point is to try to merge the two different languages that entrepreneur and researcher have. So they have to be able to communicate and, of course, trust, because Renata was right, is without trust, I mean, we cannot do the work of the other side, but to communicate is really important. As I am the CTO, I am in the border in this between two languages, and to me it's really difficult because I have to deal every day with this problem.
I think many of the elements have already been told before. So I think trust and a common, I would say, path towards what the end goal is very crucial. And of course, that end goal might change over the course of time. Sometimes the initial end goal is to create an exit, and along the way you might change that into, hey, why don't we start acquiring other companies rather than be acquired? So the goals may evolve as well over time, but it's important through that trust to have an open discussion with the key stakeholders involved in different times during the evolution of a project of a spin-off company. So for me, those are the two key elements. And then, of course, everything derives from that, depending on what the goals are. You need to articulate what the means and resources are you need for that, when you might need to accelerate or just pause a bit because of timing sometimes. So, but for me, it comes down typically to trust and common goal setting and open communication.